Hey everyone, I'm going to walk you through the Bloomberry API. We'll start with the company tech stack enrichment endpoint. This endpoint gives you a list of vendors that a specific company is subscribed to. To use it, you'll pass in the domain of the company that you're interested in, along with your API key. If you need your API key, you can get it on the account page. So, for example, if you're researching Roku, you would enter that domain here, so roku.com, along with your API key. The API key goes under credentials, and you can see that I've already copied mine here. And then you hit try it, and the response will return a list of vendors that Roku is using. For each vendor, you'll see the vendor name, the vendor category, the vendor URL, and if it's available, we'll give you the date when we first detected that the company started using that vendor. Now, in some cases, like you can see here, that date might be unknown if we're not exactly sure when the usage started. Now, I'll show you another way to view this data. You'll notice underneath the domain parameter, you have something called list mode. This is set to false by default. If you set it to true, then the response will return the vendors that are being used by this company as a simple list instead of more complex objects. This can be helpful if you're using tools like Clay or other enrichment tools that don't handle nested JSON very well. All right, let's take a look at the second endpoint. That is company tech stack changes. Now, this one returns companies that have added or removed a vendor, either a specific vendor or anything within a category sorted by the most recent first. So to use this one, the first thing you do is you pass in a date range along with either a category or a vendor name. You can find a full list of categories and vendors that are included in Bloomberry in the docs section. So in this sample, or in this example, we'll start with a beginning date of August the 1st, and we'll go with an end date of September the 1st. And we're going to use the category Human Capital Management. Okay. When I hit try it, the response will return a list of changes that Bloomberry detected during that time frame. So for each change, you'll see when it was detected and the type of change that it is. Now, that change type might be a subscription, churn, or usage, where usage means that the company started using the tool for the first time. You'll also get a lot of company details like the LinkedIn ID, the domain, the company name, their logo, their address, their industry, company size, description, country, and region. All of those attributes are being pulled in from LinkedIn. You'll also see vendor details like the vendor name and the vendor category. You'll also see something that is labeled as the vendor source field. And what that is doing is telling you how Bloomberry detected the change. So this could be from DNS records, website JavaScript, a discovered link, or an internal subdomain. For example, if we find a URL like viewer.slack.com, we can infer that the company is using Slack. Or if we detect something like looker.viewer.com, we can infer that the company has Looker set up. In this case, for vendor source, you can see link found. So that's another way that we discover this information. Now, you can filter these results if you would like to as well, using the fields underneath the category. So, for example, you could filter to show only churn events by changing churn only to true. You could also filter to look for companies with a certain employee count. You could search for specific industries or companies headquartered in a particular country. And you just enter those filters, like I said, in the fields here. Pagination works using a next token. So if a response includes a next token, let me show you what that's going to look like. I'll scroll down to the bottom of this page, and you can see that there is a next token here. I'm just going to go ahead and copy that. So you copy your next token, from the bottom of the page that you're on. And then you go back up to the top and enter the next token here and select try it. And that will give you the next page of results. Next up is the tech stack customers endpoint. This returns a list of customers for a specific vendor or category. So to use this, you just pass in the vendor name or category. In this case, I'm going to put the vendor name and we'll go with Google Workspace. So I'll just enter that here. Hit try it. And the response is going to include similar company and vendor fields to what you saw in the tech stack changes endpoint. The tech vendors endpoint is pretty straightforward. It returns a list of all the vendors in our database. I'll skip over job postings and move on to how API credits work. You just click here and you can see how all of these credits are calculated. So let's go over that. Vendors a company subscribes to use one API credit, no matter how many vendors they subscribe to. The company tech stack changes endpoint uses 10 credits per detected change, whether that's a subscription or a churn event. So if we return 10 changes, that will be a total of 100 credits. Now, the tech stack customers endpoint uses 5 credits per customer. So, for example, pulling 10 customers would use 50 credits. You can find the full documentation at docs.bloomberry.com. The docs also cover authentication and the response headers that we return. You can click on authentication on that page to see those. If you want to see the response headers in a query, you would scroll to the bottom of that query. Let me go ahead and put one in here. Scroll all the way to the bottom of the query and you click on headers, and those headers will expand and you can see the headers there. One important one to pay attention to is X credits per month remaining. This shows how many API credits you have left in your trial or your current billing period, along with a breakdown of usage by endpoint. And that's it. That's the Bloomberry API. Thanks for watching.